I used to think pushing him away would make everything easier. That if I kept my distance, I wouldn't have to feel the weight of losing him. But standing alone in my apartment now, the silence feels heavier than any heartbreak I was trying to avoid. Liam Carter wasn't supposed to matter this much. When we first met, it was simple. Effortless, even. Liam had this way of looking at me like I was someone worth knowing, like I wasn't just a collection of guarded responses and half-finished thoughts. He didn't rush me, didn't demand anything I wasn't ready to give. He just stayed, steady, patient, warm. And that was the problem. I had spent too long convincing myself that love was a risk I couldn't afford. My last relationship had ended in betrayal, the kind that reshapes how you see everything. Trust, to me, became something fragile and temporary. People didn't stay, they just left slower than you expected. So when Liam started getting closer, I did what I always did. I held back. He would text me good morning, and I'd reply hours later with something short. He'd ask to see me, and I'd tell him I was busy, even when I wasn't. And still, he never pulled away. If anything, he tried harder, like he believed there was something worth fighting for beneath all my distance. "Ethan," he said one evening, his voice softer than usual, "why does it feel like you're always halfway out the door?" I remember avoiding his eyes, focusing instead on the coffee growing cold between us. "You're overthinking it." "I don't think I am," Liam replied gently. I want to understand you." That was the moment I should have said something real. Something honest. But honesty meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant giving him the power to hurt me. "I'm just not like you," I said instead. "I don't need all that intensity." The words landed harder than I expected. I saw it in the way his expression shifted, the quiet disappointment he tried to hide. But he nodded anyway, like he was willing to accept whatever version of me I chose to give. And that made it worse. Because Liam wasn't asking for too much. I was just giving too little. That's when Noah Blake came into the picture. Noah was different from the moment we met at work. Confident, easygoing, the kind of person who didn't overanalyze every word or emotion. Talking to him didn't feel like stepping into something deep, it felt like floating on the surface, where nothing could really hurt you. "You think too much," Noah told me once, leaning back in his chair with a casual smile. "Not everything has to mean something." I found myself laughing, not because it was particularly funny, but because it felt relieving. With Noah, there were no expectations. No pressure to open up or explain myself. He didn't look at me like he was waiting for something deeper. And I liked that more than I wanted to admit. We started spending more time together, coffee breaks that stretched longer than they should, conversations that drifted into personal territory without ever becoming too serious. Noah never pushed, never asked questions I didn't want to answer. He just accepted the version of me I showed him. Unlike Liam. One night, after another quiet argument that wasn't really an argument, Liam reached for my hand. His touch was careful, like he was afraid I might pull away. "Ethan," he said softly, "I feel like I'm losing you, and I don't even know why." For a second, I almost told him everything. The fear, the doubt, the way his love felt like something I didn't deserve. But the words stayed stuck in my throat, tangled in everything I refused to face. "You're not losing me," I said, even though it wasn't entirely true. Liam searched my face, as if trying to find something real behind the walls I kept building. When he didn't, he let go of my hand slowly, the space between us growing in a way that felt permanent. Later that night, I found myself texting Noah instead. The conversation was easy, effortless. No tension, no expectations. Just distraction. And as I stared at my phone, watching Noah's reply appear almost instantly, a thought crossed my mind that I didn't try to stop. With Liam, I felt exposed, like he could see every part of me I was trying to hide. But with Noah, I felt in control, and for the first time, I started to wonder if control mattered more to me than love. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was quieter than that, subtle changes that were easy to ignore if you didn't look too closely. But Liam Carter noticed everything. At first, it was the pauses. The way I took longer to respond to his messages, or how my replies felt thinner, stripped of anything meaningful. Then it became the excuses. I was busy, tired, not in the mood. Words that created distance without sounding like rejection. Liam didn't confront me right away. That wasn't who he was. Instead, He tried to close the gap I kept widening. He showed up at my apartment one evening with takeout from my favorite place, smiling like nothing had changed. "Thought you might not have eaten," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation I never gave. I forced a small smile, guilt flickering beneath the surface. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," Liam replied gently. "I wanted to. That was the difference between us." Liam acted on what he felt. I avoided it. We sat across from each other, the conversation slow and uneven. He tried to fill the silence, asking about my day, telling me about his. I nodded where it felt appropriate, but my mind kept drifting elsewhere. To Noah. Noah Blake had become a constant presence in ways I hadn't planned. What started as casual conversations had turned into something I relied on. He made things feel uncomplicated, like emotions didn't have to carry weight. "You look like you're somewhere else," Liam said quietly, breaking into my thoughts. "I'm here," I replied quickly, too quickly. Liam studied me, his gaze searching. "Are you?" The question lingered longer than I wanted it to. I looked away first. Later that night, after Liam left with a soft, "Text me when you get some rest," I didn't reach for my phone to message him. I texted Noah instead. He replied instantly, like he had been waiting. We fell into an easy rhythm, jokes, casual complaints about work, observations that didn't demand vulnerability. With him, I didn't have to measure my words or worry about what they meant. "You ever feel like people expect too much from you?" I typed. Noah's response came quickly. "All the time. That's why I don't let them." I stared at the screen, something about that answer settling into me deeper than it should have. Maybe that was the difference. Liam expected something real. Noah didn't expect anything at all. Over the next few days, the distance between Liam and me became impossible to ignore. He called more often. I answered less. When I did pick up, I kept the conversations short, my tone detached. Liam noticed, of course he did, but he never accused me of anything outright. He just sounded tired. "I miss you," he admitted one night, his voice quieter than usual. I closed my eyes, leaning back against the wall. "You're acting like I'm gone, aren't you?" he asked softly. I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to explain that I was already halfway out, even if I hadn't physically left. That same night, Noah invited me out. "Just drinks," he said with a casual shrug. "You look like you need it." I hesitated for a moment, Liam's voice still echoing in my head. But the hesitation didn't last long. "Yeah," I said, "I do." The bar was dimly lit, the kind of place where conversations blurred into background noise. It was easy to forget everything outside of that moment, and maybe that's why I stayed longer than I should have. Noah was different outside of work, more relaxed, more open in ways that didn't feel demanding. He leaned in when he spoke, his attention focused entirely on me, like nothing else mattered. "You don't talk about him much," Noah said at one point, swirling his drink idly. I knew who he meant. "There's not much to say." Noah raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "That's usually not a good sign." I shrugged, trying to appear unaffected. "Maybe it just means it's not that serious." The words felt wrong even as I said them, but Noah didn't question it. He just nodded, like he understood. And that made it easier to believe. As the night stretched on, the space between us grew smaller. Our conversation slowed, replaced by moments of silence that felt heavier than before. There was something unspoken lingering in the air, something I recognized but didn't immediately pull away from. "You know," Noah said quietly, his voice lower now, "you don't have to keep pretending you're okay with things you're not." I met his gaze, my chest tightening slightly. "I'm not pretending." Noah held my eyes for a moment longer, like he was waiting for me to admit something I hadn't said out loud. Then his hand brushed against mine. It was a small touch. Accidental, maybe, but neither of us moved away. The world seemed to narrow to that single point of contact, the noise of the bar fading into something distant and irrelevant. I knew, in that moment, exactly what this was. And I didn't stop it. Instead, I let my fingers curl slightly against his, a silent acknowledgement of the line we were crossing. Noah's gaze flickered to my lips before meeting my eyes again, giving me just enough time to pull back. I didn't. When he leaned in, the distance between us disappeared completely. The kiss wasn't rushed or uncertain. It was deliberate, and for a brief, reckless moment, I let myself forget about Liam entirely. But the moment ended, like they always do. I pulled back first, my breath uneven, reality crashing in all at once. Neither of us spoke. Noah didn't apologize. He didn't need to, because we both knew what this meant. Later that night, I stood outside Liam's apartment, staring at the door I had walked through so many times before. My hand hovered near the handle, hesitation creeping in for the first time. Inside, the light was still on. He was waiting. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening as the weight of what I had done settled in. That was the moment I should have told him the truth. But instead, I opened the door and stepped inside like nothing had changed. Guilt doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in, quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore once it settles. After that night, everything between Liam Carter and me changed, even if I tried to pretend it hadn't. I stopped reaching for him. Not just physically, but emotionally. Conversations became shorter, stripped of warmth. I avoided his gaze, afraid he might see something in my eyes I couldn't hide. Every word I spoke felt rehearsed, carefully measured to keep the truth buried. Liam noticed. Of course he did. He always noticed. Did I do something? He asked one evening, his voice calm but edged with something fragile. We were sitting across from each other again, but this time the distance felt heavier, more defined. There was no quiet comfort in it, just tension stretched thin. No, I replied quickly. Why would you think that? Liam exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening slightly around the edge of the table. Because you're not here anymore, Ethan. Not really. I forced a small shrug, avoiding his eyes. You're overthinking it. The same words, the same deflection, but this time, they didn't land the same way. Liam didn't respond immediately. He just looked at me, his expression unreadable, like he was piecing something together in real time. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of fear. Not of being caught, but of what would happen when I was. The days that followed only made things worse. I buried myself in distractions, spending more time with Noah Blake, convincing myself that what happened was just a moment, a mistake that didn't define anything. Noah didn't bring it up either. He acted like nothing had changed, like that night existed in a separate space where consequences didn't reach. It should have made things easier. But it didn't, because every time Liam looked at me with quiet patience, every time he tried to bridge the distance I kept creating, the weight of what I had done pressed harder against my chest. You can talk to me, Liam said one night, his voice softer than usual. Whatever it is, you don't have to shut me out. I almost laughed at the irony. If he knew the truth, he wouldn't be asking me to open up. He'd be walking away. I'm fine, I said instead, the lie slipping out too easily. Liam nodded, but there was no conviction in it. Just quiet acceptance, like he was preparing himself for something he couldn't yet name. And then, everything unraveled. It wasn't dramatic. There was no shouting, no sudden explosion. Just a moment that stretched too long. I had left my phone on the counter while I stepped into the other room. When I came back, Liam was standing there, still and silent, my phone in his hand. My chest tightened instantly. He looked up at me slowly, his expression not angry, but something worse. Hurt. What is this? Liam asked, his voice steady in a way that made it more terrifying. I didn't need to look at the screen to know. The messages, the conversations, the pieces of myself I had given to someone else. It's not what you think, I started, the words automatic, hollow even to my own ears. Liam let out a quiet, almost humorless breath. Then tell me what it is, Ethan. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been giving someone else everything you refused to give me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because there was no version of the truth that didn't sound exactly like what it was. Betrayal. I didn't mean for it to happen, I said finally, the sentence weak, insufficient. Liam's grip on the phone tightened slightly before he set it down on the counter, like it had suddenly become too heavy to hold. You didn't mean for it to happen, he repeated softly. So what, you just let it? The question cut deeper than anger ever could. I stepped forward instinctively, but Liam took a small step back. That hurt more than anything else. It's not like that, I insisted, even though I didn't know how to explain it. It didn't mean anything. Liam's expression shifted then, something breaking behind his eyes. Didn't mean anything, he echoed, his voice cracking just slightly. You think that makes it better? No, I stopped, frustration and guilt tangling together. I don't feel for him what I feel for you. Then why? Liam asked, his voice rising just enough to betray the emotion he had been holding back. Why would you risk this, risk us, for something that doesn't even matter? The answer sat heavy in my chest. Because I was afraid. Because loving him felt like handing over every piece of myself I had spent years protecting. But I didn't know how to say that in a way that didn't sound like an excuse. So I said nothing, and that silence said everything. Liam closed his eyes for a brief moment, like he was steadying himself. I gave you everything I could, Ethan, he said quietly. Not because I expected something in return, but because I believed in us. His gaze met mine again, and this time, there was no softness left. Turns out, I was the only one who did. The words settled between us, final and unshakable. Liam, I can't do this, he cut in, shaking his head. I can't keep loving someone who's already halfway gone. My chest tightened as he stepped past me, heading for the door. Wait, I said, the word coming out sharper than I intended. He paused, but he didn't turn around. For a moment, I thought he might. But then he reached for the handle. And walked away. The door closed with a quiet click that echoed louder than anything else. And just like that, I was alone again. Only this time, it wasn't because I pushed him away. It was because I gave him a reason to leave. Time didn't fix anything. It just made the silence easier to live with. Weeks passed, then months, and the absence of Liam Carter became something I carried instead of something I tried to escape. At first, I filled the space the only way I knew how, with distractions. Longer hours at work, empty conversations, nights that blurred together without meaning. And Noah Blake. For a while, I convinced myself that staying close to him made sense. It was easier than facing what I had lost. With Noah, nothing required depth. No expectations, no accountability, just moments that passed without consequence. But that illusion didn't last. You've been quiet lately, Noah said one evening, watching me from across the table. I shrugged, stirring a drink I hadn't touched. Just tired. Noah studied me for a moment, then leaned back, his expression unreadable. You're thinking about him again, aren't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Noah let out a small breath, something almost like amusement slipping through. You know, Ethan, you're the one who ended things. Not him. The words landed heavier than they should have. Because they were true. I had spent weeks acting like I was the one who had been left behind, like I hadn't been the one to break something that mattered. But the truth was simpler, harsher. Liam didn't leave because he stopped loving me. He left because I gave him no reason to stay. I think you should go to him, Noah added casually, as if he were commenting on something insignificant. I looked up, caught off guard. What? Noah shrugged. You're miserable. He's probably miserable. Seems like an easy solution. It's not that simple, I said quietly. Noah's gaze sharpened slightly. No, it is. You're just overcomplicating it, like you always do. That was the moment I understood something I should have realized from the beginning. Noah didn't see love the way Liam did. To him, it was replaceable. Temporary. Something you walked away from when it stopped being convenient. And for the first time, that didn't feel comforting. It felt empty. I can't just show up and expect everything to be okay, I said, more to myself than to him. Noah didn't respond this time. He just nodded faintly, like he had already lost interest in the conversation. And that was it. No fight, no emotion, no attempt to understand, just indifference. I left shortly after that, the distance between us already settling into something permanent. Because whatever I thought I had found in Noah, it was never real. Standing outside Liam's apartment again felt different this time. Heavier. The last time I had been here, I carried a secret I refused to admit. Now, I carried the truth, and it felt just as difficult. I hesitated before knocking, my hand hovering midair as doubt crept in. What if he didn't want to see me? What if I was too late? The thought almost made me turn around. Almost. But I knocked anyway. For a moment, there was nothing. Then footsteps. The door opened slowly, and there he was. Liam Carter. He looked the same, and yet not at all. There was something more guarded in his expression now, something that hadn't been there before. Something I had put there. Ethan, he said, my name quieter than I remembered. Hi, I replied, the word feeling too small for everything I needed to say. Silence stretched between us, thick with everything unspoken. I didn't think you'd come back, Liam admitted after a moment. I didn't either, I said honestly. That earned a faint, almost reluctant smile. Why are you here? He asked, his tone careful. Not cold, but not warm either. I swallowed, forcing myself to hold his gaze. I'm not here to fix things. Or to ask for anything. Liam's expression shifted slightly, curiosity flickering beneath the surface. I just needed to tell you the truth, I continued. Not the version I gave you before. The real one. He didn't interrupt, didn't look away, so I kept going. I was afraid, I admitted, the words heavier now that I was finally saying them out loud. Not of losing you, but of needing you. Of letting myself care about you in a way I couldn't control. Liam's gaze softened just slightly, but he didn't speak. I thought if I kept my distance, I wouldn't get hurt, I went on. But all I did was hurt you instead. The weight of that truth settled between us, undeniable. I'm not asking you to forgive me, I said quietly. And I'm not expecting anything from you. I just needed you to know that you didn't do anything wrong. For a long moment, Liam said nothing. He just looked at me, like he was trying to decide what to do with everything I had just given him. I waited for you to say something like that, he said finally, his voice low. For a long time. Guilt tightened in my chest. I know, but you didn't, he added. I didn't, I agreed. Another silence. Different this time. Less tense, but still uncertain. I meant what I said before, Liam continued. I can't keep loving someone who doesn't choose me. His words were steady, but there was something fragile beneath them. Something that hadn't fully disappeared. I know, I said again, softer this time. And I don't know if I can go back to what we had, he admitted. I nodded, forcing myself to accept it. You don't have to. Liam studied me carefully, like he was searching for something. Then why does it feel like you're still here for a reason? He asked. I hesitated, because the answer felt just as risky now as it did before. Because this time, I said slowly, I'm not trying to protect myself from you. Liam's breath caught slightly, the smallest crack in the walls he had built. And what does that mean? He asked. I held his gaze, not looking away. It means, if there's even a chance, I said, my voice steady despite everything, I won't push you away again. The words hung between us, unfinished but full of possibility. Liam didn't respond immediately, but he didn't close the door either. And for the first time, that felt like enough.